Like It or Not starts now.
Good morning, and thank you for joining us. It is Saturday, June 10th, 2023. Thank you so much for joining us. I am not here with DJ Exclusive and Rebecca Azor like we normally are on Saturday mornings. Like It or Not is not broadcasting this morning, so you're stuck with me. Just regular old me, no DJ X3C or Rebecca Azor, but shout out to them this morning. Rebecca, hope you feel better. And of course, DJ Exclusive, special thanks to him for partying with us or leading the party until what was it, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning? I can't really remember because I fell asleep somewhere. I'm an old man, but thank you to all of the patrons who came out and celebrated my birthday party last night. We had a great time. A lot of faces we haven't seen in a while. So shout out to all of you. Patreon.com/the BPD show. And always please support my sister from another Mr. Rebecca Azor and DJ Exclusive with their new podcast. Like It or Not is a podcast now. So wherever you download my podcast, be sure to download their podcast, Like It or Not, patreon.com/like it or not. And since I am doing some housekeeping and recognitions, special shout out to my sister from another Mr. Georgia Ford, as she has completed her first season 1 of her show. It was magnificent. And if I'm not mistaken, David, I believe they have been renewed for season 2, celebrating our sister. We haven't seen her on the show here in a while, but she has been grinding there in Minneapolis, doing what she does so wonderfully. So definitely check out her, georgiafort.com, for everything that's going on with her. And last but not least, Dr. Carl Mack, who I have had a chance to hang out with here in my fair city. He came down to speak to a group of seniors about his Black History calendar. Dr. Mack is traveling all over the country right now, sharing his 366 days of Black history, and not just one calendar, but he's at some 6 calendars now with a all Black women's history calendar. Black science, the Black STEMs calendar is the one I'm looking forward to, because in that particular calendar, you really do get to see how many contributions Black people have made to the scientific community that otherwise really would go unnoticed, because, well, we live in an era where everyone is declaring a war on woke. You have Ron DeSantis, who is in second place to be the nominee for the Republican Party, but it looks like the lead candidate for the Republican nomination for president is going to hit a couple of troubles with the new 37 count indictment that was sent down by special counsel Jack Smith this week. We are looking, I believe, on Tuesday for Donald Trump to be arraigned formally down in Florida. But I want to take a listen to Jack Smith as he gives a summary of the why, the who, what, when, where, and why former President Donald Trump has been indicted yet for a second time. Let's run that first.
Good afternoon. Today, an indictment was unsealed, charging Donald J. Trump with felony violations of our national security laws, as well as participating in a conspiracy to obstruct justice. This indictment was voted by a grand jury of citizens in the Southern District of Florida, and I invite everyone to read it in full to understand the scope and the gravity of the crimes charged. The men and women of the United States intelligence community and our armed forces dedicate their lives to protecting our nation and its people. Our laws that protect national defense information are critical to the safety and security of the United States, and they must be enforced. Violations of those laws put our country at risk. Adherence to the rule of law is a bedrock principle of the Department of Justice, and our nation's commitment to the rule of law sets an example for the world. We have one set of laws in this country, and they apply to everyone. Applying those laws, collecting facts, that's what determines the outcome of an investigation. Nothing more and nothing less. The prosecutors in my office are among the most talented and experienced in the Department of Justice. They have investigated this case hewing to the highest ethical standards, and they will continue to do so as this case proceeds. It's very important for me to note that the defendants in this case must be presumed innocent until proven guilty beyond a reasonable doubt in a court of law. To that end, my office will seek a speedy trial in this matter, consistent with the public interest and the rights of the accused. We very much look forward to presenting our case to a jury of citizens in the Southern District of Florida. In conclusion, I would like to thank the dedicated public servants of the Federal Bureau of Investigation, with whom my office is conducting this investigation and who work tirelessly every day upholding the rule of law in our country. I'm deeply proud to stand shoulder to shoulder with them. Thank you very much.
Again, that was federal special counsel Jack Smith as he laid out the 49-page document with 37 federal charges against Donald Trump. 31 of the charges relate to violations under the Espionage Act, which criminalizes unauthorized possession of national defense information. Each charge under the act carries a 10-year maximum sentence. 6 other charges pertain to Trump's alleged scheme to hide the documents as federal authorities launch an investigation. 2 more accuse the ex-president of making false statements to investigators. And in addition to Donald Trump, another person has been indicted. Trump's aide, Walt Natu, was also charged with 6 felonies related to the hiding documents and making false statements. Again, that was special counsel Jack Smith. I want to play a clip that outlines some of the evidence, because what is fascinating about Donald Trump is his inability to indict himself with his own words. And so the fact of the matter is that there have been many occasions where Donald Trump has taken to national media and convicted himself with his own words, even with Sean Hannity, who tried his best to help the president out of backing himself into a corner, but it didn't matter. Donald Trump has on many occasions, when he gets behind a camera, he does not have the ability to stay on script, and he eventually indicts himself. Let's take a look at some of the evidence.
I'm going to enforce all laws concerning the protection of classified information. We can't have someone in the Oval Office who doesn't understand the meaning of the word confidential or classified.
One of the first things we must do is to enforce all classification rules.
We also need the best protection of classified information.
And that was a mashup provided by The Beat with Ari Melber on MSNBC. But this is Donald Trump indicting himself. And the irony of this is that prior to Donald Trump attempting in 2018 to harshen the sentence and the penalty for mishandling classified information, this would have been a misdemeanor. But Donald Trump, in his attempt to get Hillary Clinton, because of the obsession that they had with her emails, with the obsession that they had with locking Hillary Clinton up, Donald Trump signed his own penalty, his own enhancement of the penalty that he potentially faces because of his obsession with Hillary Clinton. So the complete full circleness of this indictment is almost laughable. It is the height of irony to see that the former president of the United States, has backed himself into a corner, not only with his language when he made appearances, but also with the law that he signed in an attempt to get Hillary Clinton. That law is potentially coming back to bite him in the behind. Now, Jack Smith said that they're looking to have a speedy trial. And we'll get into the politics of this momentarily, but in a lot of ways, this does help the Republican Party. And if this trial goes and Donald Trump gets off, this is absolutely going to be a help to his campaign for president. Now, that said, however this plays out, Donald Trump is not above the law. And this is really what so many conservatives around the country are asking this country to do. They're asking this country to completely ignore the fact that Donald Trump was laughably careless and intentionally deceptive with national security documents. Now, whether this reaches to a level for conservatives where they're willing to turn on Donald Trump, very few have been willing to. Attorney General or former Attorney General William Barr came out on CBS, I believe, and spoke out against the president and spoke in favor of Jack Smith's investigation, saying that the investigation gave due deference to the president of the United States. So there are very few Republicans, but very highly named Republicans, William Barr, who came out against the president. But for the most part, Republicans have coalesced around the former president, and this seems to be helping his case to become the next nominee for the Republican Party. And so we'll be interested in seeing exactly how the timeline for this trial plays out, because it clearly is going to have a significant impact on the primaries, the primary season that we are getting ready to go into. We have that clip of former Attorney General William Barr, as he outlined his support for the investigation and the fact that this is pretty damning for the former president.
Based on the facts, as the facts come out, I think over time people will see that this is not a case of the Department of Justice, conducting a witch hunt. In fact, they approached this very delicately and with deference to the president, and this would have gone nowhere had the president just returned the documents. But he jerked them around for a year and a half, and the question is, did he deceive them? And if there's evidence of that, I think people will start to see that this says more about Trump than it does the Department of Justice, and that is that he's so egotistical that he has this penchant for conducting, risky, reckless acts to show that he can sort of get away with it. It's part of asserting his ego, and he's done this repeatedly at the expense of all the people who depend on him to conduct the public's business in an honorable way. And, we saw that with both impeachments, and there's no excuse for what he did here.
Now, with former Attorney General William Barr stating this is a clear indication of members of the Republican establishment lining up against Donald Trump. This is the one opportunity that the establishment of the Republican Party has to finally sever ties. And David, if you would put Attorney General William Barr back on the screen, but this is their only time. This is their only opportunity that the establishment, the former establishment of the Republican Party that existed prior to Donald Trump, this is their last opportunity to finally rid themselves of the scourge that is Donald Trump. And so you see that there are very few voices, not many, but the ones that are speaking out, they are speaking very clearly to sever those ties. We saw Chris Christie come out last week announcing that he was going to run for president, and his choice for a strategy was to very directly attack the president, the former president. This lets me know, again, that the Republican establishment is coalesced around Ron DeSantis. The tricky part at this point is that Ron DeSantis has to find a way to make it appear that he is going to support Donald Trump through this, while simultaneously benefiting from the possibility that the president could be found guilty in this case. He has already been indicted, but it's very likely and very possible that Donald Trump, considering the cavalierness of Donald Trump's actions, the absurdity of it. Some commentators are laughing about just the sheer gall, the audacity of some of the efforts that Donald Trump went through to conceal this and try to get away with it. It spilled over to Fox News. Now, this particular commentator comes a little bit from the left, if considering it is Fox News. But listen to the seriousness, listen to the breakdown of exactly what Donald Trump was doing, and consider the absurdity of the former president.
The documents that were panning across the screen, that there were documents found in the bathroom, in the shower, in the ballroom, in his bedroom, in his office. That there were documents pertaining to our nuclear programs, pertaining to our weaknesses and our allies' weaknesses. What makes us vulnerable, clearly a national security risk. What has been proven time and time again when it comes to this particular case is that Donald Trump and all of his supporters have been lying to us about what happened. So first he went with everything was declassified because he's magic and he can look at things and they become declassified. Now he's on tape admitting the fact that he's showing people, Mark Meadows' team, when he's trying to do the book, a document that was still classified, and that he knows that he doesn't have the power to declassify it anymore because he's no longer president. He said they were properly secured. I don't think a toilet is a skiff. Maybe I'm wrong.
Better than a Corvette.
Yeah.
Here you go. Misdirection. Misdirection.
That's
Just
not
take.
misdirection.
Yes, it
That's
is.
the whole
because
point.
No, it's not. Because in the B block, we'll talk about Ukraine, and then I can hear about Viktor Shokin all over again. He also said that he complied with everything. We know he flouted subpoenas, and now we know that he asked his lawyers to get rid of things. It seems, and yes, I'm not a lawyer, but I'm decently smart. I know some viewers don't necessarily think that, but I'm telling you, and a few of my teachers would agree, that this seems like a pretty clear case of obstruction. And Jonathan Turley's been on our air all day talking about this and saying that these charges are the darlings of what they're looking for because they are easy to prove, especially when you have pictures of them.
So if Hillary actually does get rid of things.
Here we go. This has nothing to do with Hillary Clinton. No, it doesn't. If you want to argue and you want to talk about, again, the difference between gross negligence and extremely careless, a lot of people have that conversation. But today, you are looking at boxes of classified documents strewn across a public place, also that were transported to another location, even to the point whoever the family member who texts, I won't be able to fit all the boxes on the plane. Whatever shall we do? Come on,
Katie, but
and again, that's from Fox News, The Five on Fox News. So this is the interesting thing about Fox News. They also are attempting to sever ties with Donald Trump because they are casting their lot with Ron DeSantis. There seems to be some Republicans who do not believe that Ron DeSantis can get the nomination, or rather can win against Donald Trump. So there are some political commentators from the right who are backing away from Ron DeSantis. We will keep an eye on that because that is going to create an interesting scenario when it comes to the primaries. And we'll talk about the campaign for 2024 in a moment. We'll be speaking momentarily about Cornel West, who has declared his candidacy with the People's Party. We'll discuss that and all of the political intricacies that really are going to be important as we lead up to 2024, because the divide in the Republican Party is a critical one at this point, because we need those fascists to weaken each other. If I could just state it very clearly, I am concerned about the balance of power on the side of the Republican Party because, well, we're dealing with the Republican Party that is a party of fascism at this point. When we look at the agenda of Ron DeSantis and we look at someone like Donald Trump, who is eagerly attempting to outflank Ron DeSantis to the right to see who can be the most draconian. This is the kind of campaign that we're looking at in 2024. It will do humanity all the good in the world if Donald Trump and Ron DeSantis are able to eviscerate each other sufficiently enough that they come out of the primaries weakened, because we do not need, and this should go without saying, but we simply cannot afford for the Republican Party that as it currently exists, the Republican Party that has declared a holy war on everything that is not white, male, Christian centered. That Republican Party that has declared war on the LGBTQIA community. They have declared war on blackness. They have declared war on black history. Ron DeSantis has banned African-American history in the state of Florida. He is looking to bring his war on woke to the entire country. He is looking to bring his war on immigration to the entire country. And so is Donald Trump. So it becomes extremely important for us, those people who are simply trying to have progress, who are looking for the liberation of all people. It is important for us to understand when our enemies are fighting each other, we want to sit back and watch them fight. We want to sit back and ensure that they can eviscerate each other as much as possible, because we cannot afford either one of those fascists to get into power. I want to shift gears and talk a little bit more about Ron DeSantis, who now is in the unique position, the uncomfortable position, because again, he has the charisma of a Borg, but he is having to do a balancing act here. He is having to pretend to be concerned about Donald Trump, meanwhile knowing this is possibly Ron DeSantis's best path to the nomination. Let's take a look at him.
And what happens is, when there's no constitutional accountability, our founding fathers would have absolutely predicted the weaponization that we've seen with these agencies, particularly Justice and FBI, because when you don't have constitutional accountability, human nature is such that they will abuse their power. And that's what's happened. Nobody is held them accountable. And, look, when I was in Congress, I remember, Hillary had the emails with the classified. And my view was, well, gee, as a naval officer, if I would have taken classified to my apartment, I would have been court-martialed in a New York minute. And yet they seem to not care about that. And is there a different standard for a Democrat Secretary of State versus a former Republican president? I think there needs to be one standard of justice in this country. Let's enforce it on everybody and make sure we all know the rules. You can't have one faction of society weaponizing the power of the state against factions that it doesn't like.
Ron DeSantis, I will give him this much. He is not a master orator, but he is a master propagandist. His way with words in that particular sentence, where he set it up to say, what about Hillary Clinton's emails, to enter that into the discourse, of course, to distract and deflect. However, he never really fully said that he believed in it, that there was a double standard. He said that there's possibly a double standard, and I think that there should be the same standard. It's actually a really well-written speech from a propaganda perspective. And this is what Ron DeSantis does really well that Donald Trump doesn't do well. Ron DeSantis has the ability to stay on script and to deliver a strategic hit for his campaign. And for his agenda, not just his campaign. We've seen in the state of Florida just how effective Ron DeSantis can be. And it was interesting that he alluded back to his time as a naval officer, a JAG officer, when we do know now that there are credible allegations against Ron DeSantis for his time serving as the supervisor of torture at Guantanamo Bay as a JAG officer. So it's just a little ironic that he would bring that up when that is, in terms of his history, one of the most damning portions of his resume that he's trying to keep as quiet as possible. But he brought it up. And so I think it's something that we should constantly remind the people that we're dealing with a presidential candidate who has not only declared war on blackness, he has declared war on science. He has declared war on public education. He's declared war on the LGBTQIA community, but he also has a past of being the bad cop as he oversaw torture, waterboarding at Guantanamo Bay. That's who we have running for president. And so it is important, I think, to see how the trial that Jack Smith is getting ready to commence is going to impact the Republican nominations for president. Because while both of these candidates should stay as far away from the White House as possible, I would argue, and I would stand by the fact that I believe that Ron DeSantis is far more trouble for democracy itself, for freedom. Ron DeSantis is the truest threat to this democracy. Donald Trump is not a far second. In fact, he might be tied for the kind of threat that Donald Trump. But Donald Trump's threat is unique because it's coupled with his stupidity. Donald Trump needed the insurrection of January 6th to avoid exactly what he's facing right now. The only path that Donald Trump has to not having accountability is the off chance that he can completely get away with this, that he could be found not guilty. Also, there's a possibility that the president, Joe Biden, could pardon Donald Trump just for the sake of the empire. We'll talk about some of those implications. But the truth of the matter is that Donald Trump's real strategy to get away with not only these documents, but everything else that he did while he was in the White House is the fact that he is willing to overthrow this democracy. I mean, January 6th was an indicator of how far this man is willing to go in order to maintain power. But the reason he has to maintain power is because he is so cavalier with his arrogance that he believed he could get away with anything. He believed that before he became president. And so when Donald Trump became president, it boosted his ego to the point of, well, his own destruction. I'm reminded of the scripture, pride goeth before destruction, and a haughty spirit before the fall. This is most certainly the case with Donald Trump. Because of his arrogance and his ego, he put himself in a position where the only way that he could possibly avoid criminal charges was to try to overthrow the government. And I believe that they are still trying to do that to this day. Ron DeSantis is not too far away from it, but Ron DeSantis is smart enough to use the mechanisms of these institutions. Ron DeSantis doesn't have to have January 6th because Ron DeSantis can execute it quietly through the system. All right, let's shift gears with the time that I have left. I want to go over to Cornel West, who appeared on Democracy Now! This week as he discussed his campaign for president. And I want to start this section just again with a couple of disclaimers. I am a fan, to say the least, of Cornel West. I've studied his works for at least the last 20 years of my life, read his books, not every book, but I've read enough of his books and listened to enough of his sermons and his lectures to understand the quality and the caliber of this man. And so in terms of substance, you're not going to find me disagreeing with Cornel West on a lot. There are some places that we disagree, namely, and potentially Ukraine. I'm waiting to hear him flesh out all of his positions on Ukraine. But I say this at the beginning because it's difficult for me to disagree publicly with someone I admire so much. And what I disagree with him on the most is the fact that he is running for a political party that has demonstrated a history of poor leadership, poor decision making, poor organizing, harassment, and a lot of accusations that now Cornel West is having to answer for. And this is the reality. When you affiliate yourself with a political party or with any institution or organization, you take on their reputation. And it is so unfortunate to see Dr. Cornel West having to answer for the irresponsibility of the chairman of the party that he decided to run for. And so my concern with Cornel West's run for president is more centered on the fact that he is now affiliated with a party that really puts him in a position that when he went on, and David, I don't know if you have the clip from Democracy Now!, but if you do, I would like to show a portion of it. But when he went on Democracy Now! With Amy Goodman, Dr. Cornel West was asked questions about the People's Party, their ability to even gain ballot access, which is the real question at this point. Dr. Cornel West is lending his notoriety, his intelligence, and his reputation to a party that really doesn't have anything to offer him structurally. And it's also a party that is affiliated with some of the worst people in the political conversation today. Let's take a look at Dr. Cornel West having to answer for Nick Brana and the People's Party as he announced that he was running for president this week.
You know, Democracy Now!, we ask very critical questions. I also want to read from a New Republic article about your candidacy and about the People's Party. The article states, quote, "While the party began in 2017 with noble roots to form a new political party independent from corporate money and influence, it's been mired in troubling allegations as well as broader organizational dysfunction, numerous sources of corroborated sexual harassment allegations against party founder Nick Brana. Last year, former party member Paula Jean Swearingen said she'd witnessed Brana try to force himself onto former party executive director Anna Day, who confirmed the allegations herself. Numerous party board members were apparently forced out for encouraging investigations into the allegations and questioning whether Brana was still fit to lead the party," unquote. Brana has also praised the prominent anti-vaxxer Robert Kennedy Jr., who's also running for president, but as a Democrat. He described Kennedy as a, quote, "courageous leader whose environmental and vaccine advocacy has illuminated issues that few dare to confront." So he's the founder of the party that you're running with, the People's Party. Talk about why you chose the People's Party and if you would like to respond to those allegations. And also the bigger point of why you didn't choose, for example, if you wanted to be outside the race, the Green Party, which has more ballot access. But that's a lot there, Cornel.
Yeah, no, indeed. And I appreciate that question too, my dear sister. I mean, I have a great love for my Green Party brothers and sisters. I've worked twice with them, and so I have nothing against their third party operations. It would be nice if we had even a coming together, but that's something that is for a different show. But in terms of the history of the People's Party, you know, I was there at the founding. There's no doubt about that. And I've been a kind of honorary member of the board, even though I haven't participated, so I haven't followed all of the insides and outsides of what has happened. It strikes me that there's been some very bad and ugly moments. There's no doubt about that, but I don't want to adjudicate as to who actually is guilty or who's actually innocent, because I just don't know. But there has to be accountability, and especially when it comes to sexual harassment in terms of sisters of any color, those are very, very important issues to wrestle with, and very serious charges in that regard. But as I said before, that for me, I wanted to be able to bring a serious critique to bear on the corporate duopoly. And the People's Party, in its inception and in its vision, is a populist one. So you got a number of different voices, heterogeneous. It is very loose. A lot of people say, well, is it an organization at all? I mean, does anything hold it together, and so forth and so on? Well, that we shall see. Those are very important
Hold it right
questions.
there. We shall see. That part really floored me. I hate to see someone who I consider to be a mentor at a distance, someone that I literally still smiled cheek to cheek when he came on the show and told me that he read my book. It was one of the biggest honors because of how many of his books that I've read. So I just really want to deal delicately with it, not so much for anyone else who loves Dr. West, but for myself. I absolutely love Dr. West. And I would love to see someone in the White House who has the convictions that Dr. West has. That is the goal. We are very far from that goal in the United States of America as it stands right now. In fact, it would take a lot more than what the People's Party has to offer us for us to get someone like Dr. West into the White House. It would take a lot more than what Nick Brana is prepared to manage. I hate to see the brilliance of Dr. Cornel West be dimmed by the incompetence of someone like Nick Brana and the People's Party. The name sounds convincing, a party for the people, but underneath it, it is the same white male mediocrity that we see infecting this country everywhere we turn. It is the same grifting of communities of color, our talent, our resources, and our data. It is the same grifting that takes place at every single level. And I, for one, am just saddened by the fact that Dr. West now has to answer for the shortcomings, the incompetence, and the mediocrity of a political party that's younger than my son. Okay? That doesn't have chapters or branches anywhere in the country. A political party that is affiliated with Jimmy Dore, who is a right-wing conservative comedian who they wanted to run. Before the People's Party ran Dr. West, they were running a right-wing comedian who is a pro-Putin propagandist, who has made it very clear his disdain for women of color, for Black women, his attacks on Nina Turner, Jimmy Dore's attacks on Nina Turner, Jimmy Dore's attacks on Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, his attacks on progressivism, generally speaking. This is who the People's Party was going to run for president. But when they realized nobody really gives a damn about Jimmy Dore for president, when they saw how many people were laughing at them, they regrouped and used their relationships. I would tell you this. I will give Nick Brana and the People's Party this. Congratulations on catching and grabbing one of the most prolific thinkers of our generation and convincing him to run on your pitiful party. This is the get of the century for you. This is the peak. But now you have to demonstrate, Nick, the ability to organize at a level that matches his greatness. And you can't do that when you're mired with controversy and accusations of incompetence and everything that we saw Dr. West just have to answer for. Now, that's my personal plea on behalf of a person that I respect and admire. Let's get into the politics of it. Let's get into the electoral politics of it. Even if the People's Party is able to muster up 2-3%, that's all they will be able to get on a good day. Electorally speaking, we do understand that third parties in the United States of America stand a slim chance, a snowball's chance in hell of actually winning a plurality, let alone a majority, right? And so we understand that these third party runs that we see come around just every 4 years. I like the Green Party. I like Cornel West. I like I like the idea of us being able to break away from this duopoly. But the end result, and anyone who dismisses this fact, anyone who says we don't care about it, we don't want to think about it, we don't want to discuss it, but the end result of a successful third-party campaign is ultimately an assist for Ron DeSantis or Donald Trump. It simply is. If you want to talk about it academically, you can look up Diverger's law. You can look up how our representative system lends itself instantly towards a two-party system. And we see in history, not only theoretically, but we see campaigns that come from the third party perspective oftentimes do just well enough to assist the fascists. That means something. That matters. It may not matter to everyone. Some people may completely dismiss it and say, oh, we don't want to vote for the lesser of two evils. I understand that. I completely understand that. But the fact of the matter is that in this race to try to ward off fascism, where we are already behind the eight ball, let's just be real about something. We're not trying to prevent fascism from taking root. We're trying to get it out of this system. The fascism that we're facing, what you see happening around the country, what you see happening to the LGBTQIA community, what you see happening to Black people all around this country. Let's get specific. When you see the conservative movement, white evangelicals, political philosophers from the right change the definition of a good Samaritan in order to justify the murder of a Black man by a former Marine. When you see the banning of books around this country, when you see the militarized presence of these militias, these right-wing militias, the Proud Boys, the Boogaloo Boys, the Three Percenters, the Oath Keepers, when you see them galvanizing all around the country, you can't help but to be concerned about what happens if their president gets into power. We already are living in a period of grievance complex where a portion of this country genuinely believes that despite them having the most economic power, despite them having the most political power, despite them having the most social power, the most power with the algorithm, the purchase of Twitter, the right-leaning algorithm of YouTube and Facebook, when you look at the total momentum of everything that's going on, perhaps you can consider the importance of what those 2 or 3 percentage points will do in 2024 to aid and abet someone like Ron DeSantis, to give him the power of the executive branch to be able to execute even further his war on wokeness, which is nothing more than a war on Blackness. His war on the LGBTQIA community, which is nothing more than projection for a conservative movement that is riddled. And maybe that's where I'll end today as we get ready to get out of here. The projection that comes from the conservative movement today, particularly this month, Pride Month. So we have it's over here. We have our Pride logo. The violence that we see coming from people who claim to be using this level of violence to protect the children. This week in Glendale, California, we saw so-called parents, and I say so-called parents because as these people showed up to the school board meeting to attack pro-LGBTQ supporters, people who were trying to simply get a recognition of Pride Month, they were met with violence from people who claim to be there to protect children, but they don't even have children in the district. Right. We saw in Glendale, California this week as conservatives were celebrating the violence. And I don't know if we can get it on the screen, but the violence that we saw where right wingers who oppose the LGBTQI community showed up and physically assaulted women. Right. In order to express their hatred for the LGBTQIA community. Like we are seriously encompassed about by a level of violence towards people that is getting us killed, that's causing these right wingers who feel so aggrieved, right? Despite having all of the economic power in this country, despite having political power, more political power than anyone else, despite everything that they have, despite the fact that they probably all have homes of some type, right? Let's just get to the nitty gritty. Like the people who wanted to overthrow the government, they felt so aggrieved on January 6th, they drove up in their souped up pickup trucks, right? They're Super Duty trucks with the expanded cab, right? They're $80,000 trucks. They drove up from their homes, left their wives. Some of them left their wives and their children happily, safely in their nice 3-bedroom home, right? Or some of them in lovely homes, bigger than that. What I'm saying is that they have what they need. They have what they want. They simply do not have the power to tell you what to do, and that's driving them crazy. The fact that they cannot tell you how to live your life is driving them crazy, and they feel like it's an affront to their freedom. Those are the people from January 6th, the people from the Tops supermarket in Buffalo, the people from Mother Emanuel AME, the violence that we've seen stretched out over the last 6 or 7 years. When you look at it in its totality, you realize that we are in a full-on assault against the lives of Black people, trans people, Muslims, Hispanics, Jewish people, the rise of anti-Semitism, whatever your race, whatever your ethnicity, there is an all-out assault. And it is coming from people who support Donald Trump. It's coming from people who support Ron DeSantis. And it's coming from people who are projecting onto the rest of the world their own predilections. When we really consider the fact that they pretend as though they care about children and they care about stopping grooming, but yet I don't see a single protest at any of these Catholic churches, at any of these Southern Baptist churches, these institutions that are mired so deeply in their hatred of the LGBTQIA community. They are also mired so deeply in their own sickness, in the things that they do to our children. I do think that we as a country should be infuriated by the types of things that happen to our children in this country, around this planet. But if we're going to keep it 100, we don't ever need to show up at a drag show to protest on behalf of the children, because we don't have a single account of a child being molested at a drag show, but we have so many accounts of it happening at Catholic churches, of it happening at Southern Baptist churches, of the sexual assault that happens at these institutions. I agree that we should be outraged, but the fact that they use this to project onto a group that has no record compared to what is coming from the conservative institutions that I just outlined, that should tell you the double standard that we are living under, the asymmetrical fight that we are fighting through, the fact that the people who have the most are targeting those with the least. And all we're trying to do out here is survive. You know, this is the last thing. I'll leave it with something positive. There was a video of the Hicks family reunion. David, I don't know if you can find it. My guy Kev on stage has a really good video dealing with it. Kev on stage, the Hicks family reunion, where they were out at the park and they were frying up, I don't know, it looked like a couple hundred pieces of fish. It was like Jesus' 2 fish and 5 loaves of bread. It was such a beautiful thing. And it just reminded me of what we're really fighting for over here. You know, what people like me, what I'm fighting for. I'm not fighting to try to control your life. for those of you who haven't been with me for a while and you haven't seen me for a while, just to make sure you understand, like I'm pretty conservative myself. I'm a Christian. I'm a minister. And so in my personal life, I am probably more pious. That's probably not the right word I wanted. I'm probably a little bit more devoted than most of them could ever really hope to be, you know, because I take things pretty seriously. I take my faith very seriously, right? I track how many times I cuss. I'm trying to do better, right? I track how many times I snap on these fools. I'm doing so much better this year, y'all. Thank you for working with me through my rage against this machine. But the truth is, what we're fighting for over here, even though I'm conservative, even though I'm Christian, I am who I am. I'm not trying to control your life. Do what you want to do. Believe what you want to believe, because I want to do what I need to do and believe what I need to believe. And so the only way for us to have the kind of freedoms that we want, for me to have the kind of freedoms that I want, I need to extend it to you. We're dealing with a cabal. We're dealing with a faction of people who see it completely differently. They believe, according to their faith, that they have to force you to live the way that they believe you should live. Keep in mind, they're not living that life themselves either. They are trying to force you to live some type of moral life based on a code that they don't even abide by. And so when I see this video of the Hicks family, and if you got the Kev on stage one, it's a really good one. I just want people to realize, like, all we're really trying to do around here is enjoy this time that we have, right? And one of the most joyful things that we do in the Black community is our family reunion. It's the cookout. It's the barbecue. It's the reason why we always, I don't always say it. I don't invite none of y'all. David been producing. I have a white producer who's been producing for me for years. I ain't never invited this man to a cookout yet. I'll get you an invite, David. But I just want y'all to see the difference, right? They would call it. There's not a single conservative that you know of who would not call me an extremist, zealot, radical that needs to be arrested. And all I'm trying to do is get to the family reunion and make sure that we have a stable enough society that we don't destroy ourselves and have chaos in the streets and have violence in the streets like we have in the form of the Proud Boys, the Patriot Front, like we see in all of these fascist organizations that are executing violence. There's nothing on their side except death and control and totalitarianism. And this is what we're trying to do. Run that clip.
I don't think you understand how badly I want to be in this video. I want to be where the fish fry is happening. Just seeing Little Mermaid, that's gone now. Fry flounder up. Okay, because the man, you know how serious he's about the fish? That's a unique custom fryer. You ain't seen no fryer like that. That man fried a whole lineage of fish in a day. That's 48 pieces of fish on there. The Hicks family reunion, I think I'm Hicks. I thought my last name was Fredericks. It was Fish and Hicks. That's me, Kevin Fish and Hicks. I want to know where ain't nobody hit my line, told me where the reunion was going to be. Man. I would have got the bread and the mustard. People don't fry fish like this on the regular.
Come on, man.
I ain't had fried fish like this, but 5 times in the last 10 years, and all 5 times, Danny Rose fried it. I want to go there. I want to be there. I want to be in this place where the person filmed it. I want to taste that fish and the ribs.
Come on.
And the corn, but mostly the fish.
Mostly the fish.
I said fish because I'm lightheaded. It looks so good to me in my mind, and my body want to have it.
Come on, bro. Look at this.
I want to have some.
That's all Black folks try to do.
I want to have some of that.
Listen, this is all we try to. We want y'all to just leave us alone so that we can show up to our family reunion, go outside with some barbecue, fry some fish. The fish don't fry in the kitchen. The beans don't burn on the grill. We just try to have good times. Wrong show, I know, but still, I just wanted to tie those two together. Listen, folks, I need people to understand there is a substantive difference between those of us who are fighting for liberation and those who are trying to fight to control your lives. It's as clear as that. They want to control you. They are celebrating the fact that they are making Pride Month as miserable as they can for as many people as they can. They are celebrating the fact that they are making Pride Month as miserable as they can for as many as people as they can. And here we are on our side saying, hey, not can we all just get along? No, but can y'all leave us alone so that we can do and live in our freedom and pursue our happiness? And we are at a stage where we're not asking anymore. We're going to demand it. We are going to get it, and we're going to do it anyway. By any means necessary is the only really thing to say at that point, but this is a good place for us to check out. David, thanks so much for waking up with us this morning and producing. Shout out to DJ Exclusive and Rebecca Azor. They will be back with us next Saturday. And thank you to all the supporters who are watching now and those who came out to my birthday party last night. We had a great time. Patreon.com/the BPD show. That's all I got. I will see you on the podcast on Monday. And again, remember, like it or not, Tuesdays, 9:30 a.m. right here on this channel. Saturdays at 10 a.m. right here on this channel, and pick up the podcast anywhere you find podcasts. And when you download the podcast, leave a review for Like It or Not for their podcast. Folks, that's all I got. See you next time.